The Galactic Empire's arrogance. The Galactic Empire, a massive force that controlled most of the galaxy, looked down on Earth like a tiny, insignificant speck in the vastness of space. For centuries, Earth had been nothing more than a primitive world with no place in galactic politics. The Empire ruled with iron fists, crushing any opposition with ease. They believed no one could challenge their power, not even the other mighty empires that existed across the stars. They had wiped out entire species, conquered countless planets, and created fear wherever they went. When the Galactic Empire first heard about Earth's new ships, they laughed. To them, Earth was still the same primitive planet they had disregarded for so long. The idea of Earth building advanced ships was ridiculous. How could such a weak, young civilization even dream of competing with the most powerful military in the galaxy? The Empire had heard of Earth's prototypes, ships that were designed with new, powerful technology. But they couldn't believe the reports. These prototypes were said to be fast and highly advanced, capable of holding their ground against the Empire's fleets. The very thought of Earth being able to produce such ships angered the Empire's commanders. At a top-secret meeting, the Empire's high-ranking officers discussed Earth's so-called prototypes. One commander stood up and scoffed. Earth thinks they can create ships to rival the Empire. It's laughable. Let them try. It'll be a lesson they won't forget. The room erupted in laughter. The idea of Earth's ships being anything other than easily defeated was absurd. Meanwhile, on Earth, a different story was unfolding. After years of research and development, humanity had secretly been working on something far beyond the technology the Galactic Empire could comprehend. Earth's leaders knew they couldn't match the Empire's numbers, but they had something the Empire didn't: creativity, determination, and a drive to protect their home. While the Empire mocked them, Earth's scientists and engineers had spent countless hours developing a new kind of ship built for speed, agility, and power. These prototype ships were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. They were designed with advanced materials that made them lighter, stronger, and more durable. The engines were built to reach speeds faster than any known ship, and the weapons they carried were far beyond the reach of any other empire. The ships were not just designed to fight. They were designed to survive. Each one had special shielding that could absorb energy blasts and redirect them back at their enemies. The power of the prototypes was hidden in their simplicity. They didn't need a massive fleet to fight the Empire. With just a handful of these ships, they could strike like lightning and disappear before anyone could react. However, the Empire didn't know this. They still believed that Earth's fleet, if it even existed, would be no match for their mighty armadas. They thought it would be a simple task to crush the upstart planet. The day Earth was ready to show its prototype ships to the galaxy, the Galactic Empire was busy celebrating another victory. Their fleet had just destroyed a rebel faction in a distant sector, and they felt invincible. It was the perfect time for a test. Earth's ships would arrive in the Empire's most heavily guarded space sector, and the Empire expected to wipe them out without breaking a sweat. As Earth's prototype ships made their way toward the Empire's fleet, the commanders on the Galactic Empire's flagship were relaxed, almost too relaxed. They didn't bother preparing for a real fight. They were confident that Earth's ships, whatever they were, would be destroyed before they even got close. They even joked about how easy it would be to add Earth to their list of conquests. But Earth wasn't going to be conquered so easily. Earth's leaders had made it clear. They weren't going to let the Empire push them around any longer. They had prepared for this moment, and they were about to show the galaxy just how wrong the Empire was. The first prototype ship broke through the atmosphere and appeared on the radar screens of the Empire's fleet. It was smaller than any of the Empire's warships, but it moved with incredible speed. The Empire's commanders barely had time to react before it disappeared from sight. Another ship appeared from a different angle, moving so fast that the Empire's sensors struggled to lock onto it. "What is that?" one of the commanders shouted. "How are they moving so fast?" The answer was simple. Earth's ships weren't built to be fast by traditional standards. They were built to be unpredictable, to outmaneuver anything the Empire could throw at them. Before the Empire could react, Earth's ships fired. Their weapons, far more advanced than anything the Empire had expected, tore through the Empire's fleets. The first blast hit a large warship, disabling its shields and breaking through its hull. The Empire's flagship sent out a call for reinforcements, but Earth's ships were already gone, moving too fast for the Empire to catch up. The commanders were stunned. How could this be happening? They had laughed at Earth's ships, expecting an easy victory. But now, the Empire's greatest weapon was under attack, and they had no idea how to respond. At that moment, the Empire began to realize that they had made a terrible mistake. Earth wasn't the weak, primitive planet they had assumed. Earth had learned, adapted, and built something no one could have predicted. And now, the Galactic Empire was about to face the consequences of their arrogance. The first clash between the Empire and Earth's prototype ships was only the beginning, and Earth was just getting started. The battle was far from over, and the Empire was about to discover that underestimating humanity could be their greatest downfall. The battle had begun, and the Galactic Empire was in shock. Their mighty fleets, considered invincible for centuries, were now struggling to keep up with the new, unpredictable enemy. The Earth prototype ships, sleek and fast, moved like shadows through the Empire's vast formations. With every passing second, the Empire's once proud fleet was losing ships, unable to react fast enough to counter Earth's strikes. On the bridge of the Imperial flagship, the mood had shifted from arrogance to panic. The fleet had been considered the finest the galaxy had ever known, a symbol of the Empire's overwhelming power. Yet here it was, being torn apart by a handful of tiny ships from a planet they had thought of as nothing more than a primitive backwater world. The commanders were scrambling to come up with a plan, but Earth's ships seemed to be everywhere, attacking from all angles, then vanishing without a trace. Where are they? How are they moving so fast? One of the officers asked, his voice shaking. A crew member, his eyes glued to the radar screens, struggled to make sense of the situation. They're not following any pattern, sir. They're too fast and too unpredictable. Back on Earth, humanity watched in awe as their ships turned the tide in a war they had never expected to fight. The prototypes had been built for this moment, with cutting-edge technology that the Empire had never imagined. And now, the Empire was paying the price for their overconfidence. As the Earth ships continued their assault, they took down one Empire vessel after another. They didn't just destroy the ships. They crippled the Empire's entire war machine. One ship would disable the Empire's defenses, another would destroy key targets, and a third would leave the enemy fleet in disarray. The precision and coordination of Earth's attack was staggering. The Empire had expected chaos, but what they were witnessing was a well-executed strategy, one they couldn't counter. "Keep firing. We need to stop them before they destroy everything," shouted the fleet's commander. But it was too late. The Empire's response was slow, disjointed, and ineffective. The Earth ships were too fast, too clever. The Galactic Empire had never encountered an enemy that fought like this, using intelligence, speed, and unexpected tactics. The Empire had always relied on brute force, overwhelming firepower, and sheer numbers. But Earth was showing them that there was more to warfare than just having the biggest fleet. As the hours passed, the destruction mounted. One by one, the Empire's warships fell, their massive frames crumbling into space debris. The Galactic Empire's fleet, once considered the most powerful force in the galaxy, was being broken apart by Earth's small, but well-coordinated prototype ships, and each victory only made Earth bolder. Aboard the flagship of the Imperial fleet, the once confident commanders were now gripped by fear. "This can't be happening," one of them muttered under his breath. "How are they doing this? What kind of weaponry do they have?" The fleet had suffered heavy losses, and there was no sign of the attack slowing down. The Empire's warships were being picked off one by one, their attempts at retaliation ineffective. Earth's ships seemed to be everywhere, attacking with ruthless precision. It was like a swarm of hornets, fast and impossible to catch, with deadly strikes that crippled the Empire's forces before they could even react. The fear among the Imperial officers was growing. They had underestimated Earth, assuming their so-called primitive weapons and ships would be no match for the Empire's overwhelming might. But now, Earth had proven them wrong in the most spectacular way. It was no longer a simple skirmish. It was a full-fledged war, and the Empire was losing. Back on Earth, the leaders were watching the battle unfold on their command screens. They had known the risk when they decided to confront the Empire, but they had also known the stakes. Earth's leaders understood that they couldn't let the Empire go unchecked. This was a battle for survival, a battle to protect their world and their future. "We can't stop now," the commander of Earth's fleet said, his voice steady despite the intensity of the situation. "We have to keep pushing. We need to show them that we will never back down." The fleet's attacks were relentless, and with every strike, Earth's ships continued to dismantle the Empire's forces. But this was just the beginning. Earth's leaders knew that a single victory would not be enough. They needed to send a message to the Empire that they had underestimated humanity. In space, the Imperial fleet was starting to break apart. The once formidable warships were now floating in pieces, and the remaining forces were retreating in disarray. The Empire's commanders were in shock. How could this have happened? How could Earth, a planet they had never taken seriously, turn the tide of the battle so quickly? One of the fleet commanders, desperate to salvage what remained of his forces, sent out a final communication to the Empire's command center. "We're being destroyed. We need reinforcements now." But the response he received was not what he had hoped for. "There will be no reinforcements. Earth is not to be underestimated. It's too late to send help. Focus on surviving, if you can." The message was clear. The Empire had failed. And now, Earth was in control. As the last of the Empire's ships fell, Earth's prototype ships regrouped and prepared for the next phase of their plan. The battle was not over, but Earth had sent its message loud and clear. They would not be ignored, and they would not be defeated. The Empire had made a fatal mistake by underestimating Earth, and they were about to learn just how dangerous humanity could be when pushed too far. The Galactic Empire's fleet, once a symbol of unparalleled power, was now a shadow of its former self. The remnants of their warships drifted aimlessly through space, their once mighty engines silent, their weapons rendered useless. The Earth ships, faster and more deadly than anything the Empire had ever faced, had dismantled their forces with shocking precision. The Galactic Empire was losing, and for the first time in centuries, its commanders had no idea how to stop the onslaught. Back aboard the flagship, Admiral Vornis paced back and forth, his face etched with worry. The control room, once bustling with activity, now seemed eerily quiet. His officers, once full of bravado, were now whispering nervously amongst themselves. The reality had set in. The Empire was losing this battle, and the defeat was becoming more certain with each passing moment. "Admiral, we've lost contact with the eastern flank," one of his officers reported, his voice shaky. "The Earth ships, they're everywhere. We can't predict their movements. Our weapons can't hit them." Vornis clenched his fists, his mind racing. The Earth ships had proven themselves to be a nightmare. Their speed and maneuverability were unlike anything the Empire had ever faced. The Galactic Empire had always relied on overwhelming firepower to crush its enemies. But Earth's ships were different. They didn't need overwhelming firepower. They simply needed precision. "We need to come up with something, or we'll lose everything," Vornis muttered under his breath. He looked at the tactical display, which showed Earth's ships moving in and out of the Empire's fleet with ease, picking off targets one by one. A voice interrupted his thoughts. "Admiral, there's an incoming transmission from the Imperial Command," one of the officers said. handing him a communication pad. Vornis took the pad and pressed a button to accept the transmission. The face of a high-ranking officer appeared on the screen. "Admiral Vornis, we've received word from the Emperor. We're sending reinforcements immediately. Hold your position until they arrive. Do you understand?" Vornis stared at the screen for a moment, his mind racing. Reinforcements. It was the only hope left. The Empire was still too powerful for Earth to face in a full-on conflict, but if they could hold out long enough for help to arrive. "I understand," Vornis replied, forcing confidence into his voice. "We'll hold our ground, but we need a strategy. If we don't do something soon, we'll lose this entire fleet." The transmission ended, and Vornis turned to his officers. "Prepare the remaining fleet for defense," he commanded. "We can't afford any more surprises. It's time we turned the tables on them." Back on Earth, the fleet's commanders were aware of the Empire's growing desperation. They knew the Empire would not go down without a fight, and they were preparing for whatever might come next. But they also knew something the Empire did not. Earth's ships had more than just speed and firepower. They had something more important: cunning. The prototype ships weren't just designed for battle. They were designed for strategy. Each ship was equipped with advanced sensor systems that allowed them to detect even the smallest movements in space. They could anticipate where the enemy would be before the enemy even knew it. And that's exactly what they did. As the battle raged on, Earth's ships began to pick off the last of the Empire's warships. Their strategy was simple: stay one step ahead. They attacked from unexpected angles, hit targets in the Empire's weakest spots, and then disappeared into the shadows before the Empire could retaliate. They were fighting smarter, not harder. But the Empire wasn't finished yet. Vornis had a plan, and he was about to put it into motion. With the reinforcements coming, he had one last chance to turn the tide. He knew he had to bait Earth into a trap. The trap was set. Vornis ordered his remaining ships to concentrate their fire on one of Earth's prototype ships, a small, fast vessel that had been a thorn in their side throughout the battle. Earth's ships were well coordinated, but if they could take down one of their most advanced ships, it could break their morale. The Empire's remaining fleet launched a coordinated attack, focusing all their firepower on the lone Earth ship. The prototype ship darted and weaved, avoiding most of the fire, but the Empire's sheer numbers were overwhelming. It was only a matter of time before they would catch it. On board the Earth ship, the captain saw the incoming fire. He knew it was a trap, but he also knew that he couldn't back down now. He barked orders to his crew, urging them to keep dodging, keep fighting. But despite their best efforts, the ship's shields began to crack. It wouldn't hold out much longer. "We're not going to make it," one of the crew members shouted. But the captain smiled grimly. "Stay with me. We have one chance left." Just as the Empire's fleet was about to land the fatal blow, Earth's fleet sprang into action. The prototype ships that had been hiding in the shadows suddenly surged forward. The Empire had made a critical mistake. By focusing all their fire on one ship, they had left themselves open to attack from all sides. The Earth ships launched their final assault. They cut through the Empire's remaining ships with surgical precision, targeting weak points and disabling key systems. The Empire's ships began to explode one by one, the shockwaves reverberating through the vacuum of space. The reinforcements never arrived. The Empire's hopes were dashed as Earth's prototype ships wiped out their last remaining warships in a final devastating blow. The Empire had underestimated humanity, and now they were paying the price. The Galactic Empire was broken, and Earth had shown the galaxy what they were truly capable of. The once great empire had been humbled by the very planet they had laughed at for centuries, and humanity was just getting started. The remnants of the Galactic Empire's fleet drifted through the vast emptiness of space, their once mighty warships now little more than debris. The defeat was total, and the morale of the Empire's soldiers had crumbled completely. Many of them were too afraid to even speak, staring at the wreckage of their once proud Armada. The few remaining vessels were scattered, damaged and unable to regroup. In the Imperial flagship, Admiral Vornis sat slumped in his command chair, his hands gripping the armrests as he stared at the vast expanse of space before him. His face was a mask of disbelief. He had never imagined this would happen. The Empire, the most powerful military force in the galaxy, had been brought to its knees by a mere handful of Earth's prototype ships. "We've lost," Vornis muttered to himself. His voice was hoarse, as if speaking the words aloud made the reality more real. His officers remained silent. They had no answers for him. The situation was beyond repair. The room was cold and quiet, the hum of the damaged ship the only sound that filled the air. But there was one voice that broke through the silence, a voice filled with anger and frustration. A younger officer, Lieutenant Eros, stepped forward, his face flushed with emotion. "We can't just give up like this," Eros said, his fists clenched. "There has to be something we can do. We have to retaliate. We have to destroy Earth, show them that they made a grave mistake." Vornis turned slowly in his chair to face the young officer. His eyes, filled with the weight of defeat, met Eros's fiery gaze. He could see the desperation in the lieutenant's eyes. "We've already tried everything," Vornis said quietly. "The prototype ships are too fast, too precise. We can't catch them. We can't hit them. And now we can't even make contact with the rest of the fleet. Earth has won." Eros's expression hardened. "Then what do we do now, sir? Just give up and let them mock us. Let them take our empire." Vornis sighed deeply, his gaze drifting back to the view of space. "I'm not giving up," he said, his voice filled with a quiet determination. "But I'm not foolish enough to think we can simply fight our way out of this. We need a new plan, a different strategy. The Earth ships have defeated us by using their brains, not their brawn. We need to find a way to turn that against them." The young officer hesitated, his frustration still apparent. "But how do we fight against something we don't understand? They've outsmarted us at every turn." Vornis stood up, his voice growing stronger as he spoke. "We've underestimated them. The Earth fleet might be smaller, but it's incredibly well coordinated. They think ahead, and they adapt quickly. They're not like us. They don't rely on overwhelming force. They rely on tactics, on thinking outside the box." "Then what do we do?" Eros asked, his voice laced with doubt. "We do what they did," Vornis replied. "We outsmart them. We find their weakness, exploit it, and strike when they least expect it." The words felt hollow to Eros, but he knew that Vornis was right. The Empire had been too arrogant, too reliant on brute force. It had been their downfall. Earth had shown them the power of strategy, of intelligence. But now, it seemed that the only way forward was to learn from their enemies. In the coming days, the Empire's remaining officers worked tirelessly to come up with a new plan. They knew they couldn't match the speed and precision of Earth's ships, so they turned their focus to the only thing they still had: their numbers. The Imperial fleet, though shattered, still outnumbered Earth's ships. Vornis and his commanders decided to play the numbers game. They would launch a massive attack, a surprise ambush designed to overwhelm the Earth fleet. Their plan was simple: lure Earth's ships into a trap and strike when they were least prepared. The strategy was risky, but it was the only option left. Earth's ships had taken them by surprise with their lightning-fast movements and advanced technology. But now the Empire was preparing to turn the tables. They knew that Earth's ships could evade a single attack, but if they were surrounded on all sides, they might not have the same chance. As the Empire's fleet regrouped and prepared for the upcoming strike, Vornis felt a renewed sense of determination. This was it, their last chance. They had no choice but to take this fight to the next level. But what they didn't know was that Earth's fleet had been watching them, studying their movements. The tables were about to turn once again. On Earth, the fleet's commanders were analyzing the situation carefully. They had anticipated that the Empire would try to fight back, but they had also prepared for that. Earth's fleet had one advantage that the Empire could never match: the element of surprise. The battle was far from over, and both sides were preparing for a final showdown. What the Empire didn't realize was that Earth had already seen through their plan. They had learned from the first round of battles, and were now ready to counteract any move the Empire could make. As the final moments approached, both sides were on edge, knowing that the fate of the galaxy would be decided in a single explosive confrontation. The Empire's desperation would meet Earth's determination, and only one would emerge victorious. The tension in space was palpable. On both sides of the galaxy, the fleets were readying themselves for what would be the decisive battle. The Empire's forces, though battered, had gathered their strength, determined to strike back. But on Earth's side, the atmosphere was just as charged, their ships poised for the final confrontation. The commanders knew that the fate of their world rested on the decisions made in these moments. Admiral Vornis stood at the command center of the Empire's flagship, his mind racing. His officers moved swiftly around him, preparing their final assault. The plan was simple: trap the Earth fleet in a corner and overwhelm them with sheer numbers. The Empire had an advantage. Its fleet was much larger than Earth's. All it took was the right maneuver to turn the tide in their favor, or so they thought. The Galactic Empire's fleet split into several groups, surrounding the Earth fleet, each vessel poised for attack. Vornis's eyes narrowed as he watched the data streaming across his screen. They had anticipated the Earth fleet's movements, had predicted their tactics, and had designed their assault with precision. But as the first wave of ships surged forward, something unexpected happened. Earth's ships moved in a way Vornis hadn't planned for. They didn't retreat. They didn't try to fight back. Instead, they simply disappeared into the blackness of space. The Empire's forces were left confused, watching as the Earth fleet scattered in seemingly random directions. "They're retreating," one of the officers shouted in disbelief. "No," Vornis replied coldly, his voice steady. "They're luring us in." He had underestimated Earth once again. The Earth fleet had anticipated this maneuver. The trap that the Empire had set was now its own. While the Empire's ships charged forward, thinking they had won, the Earth ships were weaving through space, positioning themselves strategically for a counterattack. The Empire's ships moved quickly, trying to close in on the scattered Earth fleet, but Earth's ships were faster, more agile. They weren't afraid to break away and strike when least expected. The Empire's advantage in numbers meant nothing in this kind of battle. The Earth fleet had learned their lesson well. Speed, tactics, and surprise were the keys to victory. Suddenly, the Earth fleet reappeared, emerging from the shadows, launching a series of devastating surprise attacks. Earth's prototype ships fired their advanced energy weapons, their beams cutting through the Empire's forces with deadly precision. In a matter of moments, the first wave of the Empire's fleet was decimated. Ships exploded in fiery bursts of light as the Earth fleet's weapons tore through them. The Empire's commanders scrambled to adjust, but the chaos was too overwhelming. They had never seen such a display of power. They had underestimated Earth's strength. Again. "All units, retreat," Vornis ordered, his voice laced with panic. But it was too late. The Earth fleet was relentless. Their attacks were swift, coordinated, and precise, cutting down the Empire's forces before they even had a chance to retaliate. One by one, the Empire's ships fell, their once imposing structures now shattered to breathe in the cold vacuum of space. The Earth fleet, though smaller in number, was proving that quality always trumped quantity. On Earth's flagship, Admiral Taylor watched the battle unfold on the holographic display. Her face was stoic, but inside, she felt a surge of pride. Her fleet had already turned the tide of war, and they were about to secure a victory that would be remembered throughout history. "Keep up the pressure," she ordered. "No mercy. We end this now." The Earth fleet had already claimed a decisive advantage, but they were not about to stop until the Empire was completely defeated. Earth's ships swooped in, cutting through the remaining Imperial forces like a knife through butter. It was clear that the Empire had no idea how to respond to this onslaught. They had thought they could easily overpower Earth's fleet, but they had failed to account for humanity's ability to adapt, to think on their feet, and to never give up, no matter the odds. Vornis watched as his fleet was obliterated, his heart sinking as ship after ship exploded. The galaxy that he had once commanded, the mighty empire that he had served, was crumbling before him. It was almost too much to bear. As his flagship was hit, the room erupted in alarms and flashing lights. Vornis felt the impact as the ship rocked violently. He was thrown from his seat and hit the floor, but he managed to scramble to his feet. His officers were already evacuating, but Vornis knew it was too late. The battle was lost. The Empire's fleet was decimated, and with it, the Empire's future. Back on Earth, Admiral Taylor gave the final command. All ships, prepare for the finishing blow. Let's make sure they never forget this day. With that, the Earth fleet gathered together for one final, devastating strike. The Empire had failed to destroy Earth. And now, the tide was about to turn completely. Earth's fleet locked onto their targets, and with a single, synchronized move, they launched their final assault. The remaining Imperial ships, too damaged to fight back, were struck one last time, their destruction absolute. Vornis, now standing in the wreckage of his flagship, watched helplessly as the last remnants of the Empire were reduced to dust. His face was etched with defeat, but deep inside, he knew the truth. Earth had won, and no one would ever forget the day when humanity proved they were far from defenseless. In the cold depths of space, the Galactic Empire had fallen, and humanity's strength had been proven beyond a doubt. The stars were no longer the Empire's to command. They belonged to Earth now. The final battle had shattered the once dominant Empire, but its aftermath was just as intense. In the vast emptiness of space, the debris of what was once the Galactic Empire's proud fleet now floated in silence. The massive ships that once terrorized the galaxy lay in ruins, scattered like broken toys across the cold, dark void. Earth's victory was absolute, but the price of that victory was something the Empire's leaders would never comprehend. Admiral Taylor stood on the bridge of Earth's flagship, looking out at the remnants of the battle. The lights of the command center flickered as officers continued to assess the damage. Though Earth's fleet had emerged victorious, the cost of the fight was clear. A few ships had been lost, and countless brave men and women had perished in the war, but humanity had proven its strength. Yet, even in this moment of victory, the reality of what had been achieved began to settle in. The Empire's fleet, so large and powerful, was now nothing more than a memory. The Empire that had once believed itself invincible was no more. Earth had not only survived the onslaught, but had also reshaped the future of the galaxy. Their victory meant the end of an era, one where Earth had been underestimated and dismissed as weak. Now, humanity was the most powerful force in the galaxy. "We've done it," Admiral Taylor whispered, her voice soft but filled with the weight of the moment. Her eyes shifted to the view screen, where the glowing remnants of the destroyed ships could be seen slowly drifting apart. "We've changed the course of history." Her second-in-command, Commander Hayes, approached her and stood silently for a moment. "The Empire is finished, but the galaxy won't be the same. There will be new power struggles, new alliances forming in the wake of their fall." Taylor nodded slowly, her mind already racing with the consequences of the Empire's destruction. The balance of power had shifted, but Earth's fight was not over. The galaxy would need to adjust to the new order, and humanity's place in that order would be critical. As the officers began to discuss the immediate aftermath, Taylor's thoughts were interrupted by a report from the communications officer. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the Galactic Council." Taylor's heart sank. The Galactic Council had been watching from afar as the events unfolded. While they had never openly supported the Empire, many had hoped that the Earth fleet would fail, believing humanity would not survive the test of war. They had underestimated Earth's resolve. And now, with the Empire's destruction, they were coming to terms with their own fears. "Put it through," Taylor ordered. A holographic image flickered to life before her, revealing a stern-looking representative from the Galactic Council. The man's features were hard to read, but the tension in his posture was unmistakable. "Admiral Taylor," the representative began, his voice measured but wary. "You have destroyed the Empire, but the consequences of your actions will echo across the galaxy. We need to discuss the future and humanity's place in it." Taylor crossed her arms, her expression hardening. "You want to discuss our place in the galaxy after what you've seen us accomplish?" She let the question hang in the air, her eyes narrowing. "What you should be asking is where the Galactic Council will fit into this new world order." The representative's eyes flickered with hesitation. "You've proven that humanity is more powerful than we anticipated. But you must understand, the Empire was only one piece of the puzzle. The galaxy is vast, and many powerful forces will not look kindly on what you've done. You may have won today, but tomorrow—" "We'll be ready," Taylor interrupted firmly. "We won't let anyone forget what happened here. The galaxy will learn that Earth is not to be underestimated." A hologram flickered out, leaving the bridge in silence. The crew exchanged uncertain glances. The Galactic Council had made its stance clear. They were not entirely sure how to handle the new power dynamics that Earth had introduced, but their words had not shaken Taylor's resolve. "Prepare for reinforcements to return to Earth," she ordered. "We need to be ready for anything." The Empire's fall has only just begun to send ripples through the galaxy, and there are forces out there who will try to take advantage of this shift in power. Her voice was calm, but beneath the surface, Taylor knew the truth. Earth's victory had sparked a fire that would burn through the galaxy. The old powers would fight to regain control, and new alliances would be formed in the chaos. The Galactic Council had already shown signs of wariness, and there would be others who saw Earth's strength as a threat to their own ambitions. "We'll prepare for the next fight, Admiral," Commander Hayes said, his voice steady. "And when it comes, we'll be ready." Taylor nodded. "We must be. This galaxy is about to change, and Earth is going to lead that change. No one will forget who we are now." And with that, the crew of Earth's flagship turned their focus to the future. The war had been won, but the battle for the galaxy's future had only just begun. As the ship made its way back to Earth, the void of space seemed to stretch endlessly before them. The remnants of the Empire's once mighty fleet now floated as reminders of what Earth had accomplished. In the years to come, history would remember the day Earth proved itself not just as a force to be reckoned with, but as a new dawn for the galaxy. And Earth's fleets would be the ones leading the charge into that new era, with a message that no one could ignore. Humanity had arrived. As Earth's fleet returned home, the silence in space felt heavier than ever before. The once invincible Galactic Empire had crumbled, leaving nothing but debris and memories of its former glory. The forces that had once ruled with an iron fist were now nothing more than shattered dreams, floating helplessly in the void. The world had changed in ways that no one had anticipated, and the galaxy now faced an uncertain future, one where Earth was the dominant power. Admiral Taylor stood on the observation deck of the flagship, staring out into the vast expanse of space. The stars seemed to twinkle more brightly, perhaps in acknowledgement of humanity's victory. She had seen the destruction of the Empire, the moment of triumph, and the aftermath. But what lay ahead was what truly mattered. The next steps would determine the fate of not only Earth but the entire galaxy. "Admiral," Commander Hayes said, stepping up beside her, "Earth's victory has sent shockwaves across the galaxy. The Galactic Council, the remnants of the Empire, and all the other factions. They're watching. But what do we do now?" Taylor turned to him, her face resolute. "Now we take control. The galaxy is fractured, and there will be those who will try to fill the void left by the Empire's destruction. We can't let that happen. Earth's place is at the center of the galaxy, and we will ensure it stays there." Hayes nodded, but his expression was still troubled. "There will be resistance. Some will never accept humanity's rise. Others may come for us," seeing our power as a threat. We've just dismantled the Empire, but new enemies may be waiting in the shadows. Let them come, Taylor said, her voice cold but confident. We've proven that Earth is more than capable of defending itself. But we'll also need to show the galaxy that we are not just conquerors. We will lead, and we will shape the future, but we won't rule with tyranny. We will offer peace, but we will also defend ourselves, at all costs. Commander Hayes glanced at the view screen, where Earth's blue and green orb loomed large in the distance. You're right, Admiral. It's time for a new era. A time when Earth isn't just a footnote in galactic history, but the beating heart of it. The message was clear. Humanity had changed the galaxy's trajectory. No longer would Earth be dismissed as a primitive world. No longer would their ships be laughed at. Earth's power had been proven, and those who once mocked it now had no choice but to respect it. But as Taylor stood in the quiet of the bridge, she knew that the real work was just beginning. With the Empire gone, there would be a vacuum of power that would be filled by countless factions vying for control. Some of them would be driven by greed, others by the thirst for revenge. There were even rumors of secret alliances and hidden armies waiting for their moment to strike. Admiral, a voice from the communications console interrupted her thoughts. We're receiving another transmission. It's from the Galactic Council. Taylor took a deep breath before responding. Put it through. The holographic image of the Galactic Council representative flickered into view. Unlike the last transmission, this one came with a sense of gravity. The representative was older, his face lined with concern. It was clear that the recent events had shaken him to the core. Admiral Taylor, the representative began, his voice steady but with a hint of nervousness. We have all seen what Earth has done. You have shown a power that no one expected, and now the galaxy is forced to acknowledge your strength. But you must understand, we cannot allow this to escalate further. There must be peace. Taylor's gaze never wavered. We have no intention of causing chaos, but peace will only be possible if the galaxy respects Earth's new place in it. We will not tolerate anyone undermining our strength or our sovereignty. The representative looked troubled. You must realize that there are factions, old powers, who will never accept Earth's dominance. And they will act. You will face challenges like nothing you've seen before. We're ready for whatever comes, Taylor responded. The Empire's fall was just the beginning, and Earth's fleet will remain a force that no one will underestimate. The representative fell silent for a moment, clearly weighing his next words. Finally, he spoke. The galaxy is in uncharted territory. What you've done cannot be undone. There are many who will try to challenge Earth's rise, but if you can hold your ground, the future of the galaxy may rest in your hands. We'll hold our ground, Taylor said firmly, and we'll show the galaxy that Earth is not just a power to be feared, but one to be respected. The transmission ended, leaving the somber silence behind. Taylor turned to Hayes, her expression unreadable. We've been given an opportunity, she said quietly, but it's up to us to make sure that opportunity isn't wasted. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. Earth had proved itself, and no matter what challenges the galaxy threw at them, humanity was ready. The rise of Earth was inevitable, and the galaxy would never be the same again. As the ship headed back toward Earth, the crew knew that they were not just returning to a home. They were returning to a world that would lead the galaxy into a new era. The skies would be theirs to command, and no force, no matter how powerful, would be able to stop them. Humanity had risen from the shadows, and the stars would remember their name. The future was theirs to shape, and no one would dare forget the day they proved their true power. The Galactic Empire's mistake had cost them everything. And now, Earth would ensure that no one ever underestimated humanity again. The myth of humanity. For centuries, the galaxy had turned its attention to many different worlds, but Earth was forgotten. Its people, once mighty and powerful, were now just stories, legends. The great Earth, home to a species of warriors and thinkers, was thought to be a place of the past, buried in the ashes of history. To many, the humans who lived there had vanished, and their planet was nothing but a distant memory. In the vastness of space, humanity had become a myth. Factions across the galaxy often spoke of Earth in hushed tones, unsure whether the stories were true. Some claimed it had been destroyed long ago in a great war. Others believed it was a paradise lost, consumed by its own arrogance. But no one had ever seen any evidence of humanity. They were a race that lived in the pages of ancient books, not in the real world. The galactic records, filled with the rise and fall of countless civilizations, spoke little of Earth. Only a handful of species remembered its existence. Even these species were divided in their beliefs. Some were curious, but most believed that humanity had long since gone extinct. After all, no communication from Earth had been detected in hundreds of years. No ships had arrived. No fleet had been seen in the skies. Earth was considered irrelevant. But this belief was about to change. In the heart of the galaxy, a strange event was unfolding. A faint signal, barely perceptible, reached the farthest corners of space. It wasn't much, just a whisper. A few short bursts of coded language, so ancient it was barely recognizable. Some dismissed it as static or a glitch, but others were more curious. Some experts believed it was an echo of an old signal, a remnant from Earth itself. The thought of it was exciting. Perhaps Earth wasn't completely gone. Perhaps the humans were still out there, somewhere in the galaxy. The signal, however, was not like any that had come before it. It wasn't a desperate cry for help. It wasn't a message of peace or discovery. No, this signal was far more ominous. It seemed deliberate, intelligent, even. It was as if someone was deliberately sending a message, not just to the galaxy, but to whoever might be listening. The message wasn't just ancient, it felt alive. It felt as if humanity itself was still there, hidden, waiting for the right moment. The galaxy was caught off guard. How could this be possible? Earth, a place thought to have vanished from history, was now sending a message across space. The thought seemed absurd, even laughable, to many. It was too strange, too unbelievable. But there it was, growing clearer with each passing day. The signal wasn't just a blip. It was an invitation. And the invitation was one the galaxy could not ignore. News of the signal spread quickly. It was all anyone could talk about. The galaxy's greatest minds began working tirelessly to decode the message. Ancient languages, long-forgotten codes, and symbols from old records were consulted. The signal grew stronger, clearer, and with each deciphered line, it became more and more apparent that this was no ordinary message. It was a warning. The message spoke of a time when Earth had been great. It spoke of a powerful civilization, a race of humans who had once ruled the stars. It warned of a mistake made long ago, a mistake that would now come back to haunt them all. But what was this mistake? What was the signal trying to say? No one knew. Some factions, particularly the more aggressive ones, saw this as an opportunity. Perhaps this signal wasn't a warning, but a challenge. If Earth's people were still out there, they could be easily conquered. After all, they were just a myth, a forgotten race. But other factions were more cautious. What if the humans weren't gone? What if they were waiting for the right moment to return? No one knew for sure, but the growing fear was palpable. As the signal continued to pulse across the stars, the galaxy's leaders convened. The question on everyone's mind was simple. What do we do about Earth? Was the signal a trap, or was it a genuine cry for help from the humans? The once unimaginable idea that humanity might still exist began to take root. However, not everyone believed the signal was from Earth at all. Some believed it was a hoax, a trick designed to mislead the galaxy. But those who had seen Earth's technology, who had studied its records, knew better. No one had the power to fake something like this. The humans had left a legacy, one of power, knowledge, and fearsome technology. And now it seemed that legacy was returning. Despite the confusion and fear, one thing was clear. Earth was not just a myth. And whatever message this strange signal carried, it was about to change everything. The galaxy had underestimated humanity, and soon they would find out just how wrong they were. As time passed, the signal continued to grow stronger. It wasn't just a distant whisper anymore. It was a full-blown broadcast, sending shockwaves through the galaxy. The message became clearer with each passing day. The content of the message revealed something startling, something that no one could have anticipated. This was no ordinary broadcast. It was a challenge, a call to action. The humans were coming. The fleet that had once been thought destroyed, the ships that had been hidden away for centuries, were now stirring. The message ended with a single chilling phrase: "Prepare yourselves." At that moment, everything changed. The galaxy could no longer deny it. The myth was real. Humanity had returned. The question now was, what did Earth want? And why had they waited so long to send this message? Whatever the reason, the galaxy was about to find out. And it was no longer just a myth. It was a reality. The galaxy's reaction to the signal was swift and overwhelming. Once a distant, forgotten part of the universe, Earth now had everyone's attention. The broadcast, originally dismissed as a relic of a lost world, had become the most debated topic in every corner of the galaxy. No one could ignore the possibility that humanity might be coming back. For weeks, the once unheard signal continued to pulse across the stars. It wasn't just static or interference. It was calculated, purposeful. Those who worked tirelessly to decode it found more and more fragments of meaning, each revelation a step closer to understanding Earth's fate. But one thing became clear. This was not a message asking for help. This was a message of power, and it carried a weight that no one had anticipated. As the signal's meaning became more apparent, the most powerful factions in the galaxy began to take action. Military leaders, scholars, and strategists started to analyze what this might mean. The message was a warning, an echo from humanity's past, sent across space to remind those who had long forgotten the might of Earth's people. But why had Earth waited so long? Why now? In the halls of power, the theories ran wild. Some speculated that Earth had been hiding, waiting for the right moment to re-enter the galactic stage. Others believed that humanity had been dormant, preserving its strength for a time when the galaxy would need them most. A few even considered that humanity's message was one of vengeance. If they had once been forgotten and disregarded, perhaps they had returned to reclaim their place among the stars. But no one knew for sure. And the uncertainty only fueled the growing tension. Every faction in the galaxy began to prepare for the worst. An invasion, a confrontation, or something even more unimaginable. No one could agree on what the humans were capable of. And yet, everyone could feel the sense of dread building. Among those who studied the signal closely, a few pieces of information stood out. The message was strangely detailed, more than just a warning or a call for attention. It was as if humanity was speaking directly to those who had once mocked them, who had considered them nothing more than a myth. The tone of the message felt deliberate, filled with a sense of history and pride. It was when the final part of the message was deciphered that the galaxy began to understand just how serious this was. The transmission was a calculated announcement, and at its heart, there was a phrase that sent a chill down the spines of the galaxy's leaders. The fleet is awake. The mention of the fleet was enough to send ripples of fear through every species and faction. The thought of Earth having a fleet, especially one that had been dormant for centuries, was both terrifying and unfathomable. No one had even known that such a fleet existed. Some assumed Earth had been destroyed, leaving nothing behind but ruins. Others thought the fleet had been lost to time, its ships no longer functional. But now, the fleet was awake, and it was coming. The idea of a long-lost fleet was one thing, but the thought that it might be as advanced and powerful as the ancient humans had been was another. The military strategists who had studied the history of Earth's technology and its capabilities feared what might be coming. Earth had been a world of creation, and its people had developed weapons and ships that could rival anything seen in the galaxy. The signal didn't just warn of the fleet. It seemed to be announcing that the fleet was ready, that it was preparing to sail into the stars once more. Across the galaxy, the fear was palpable. The greatest minds debated what to do. Should they prepare for a confrontation, or was this simply a show of force? Could the humans be reasoned with, or was their return the precursor to something far darker? The factions of the galaxy, once unified in their belief that humanity was gone, began to fracture. Some wanted to take immediate action, to intercept the fleet before it could get too close. Others suggested diplomacy, hoping to find some way to understand why Earth had waited so long to reveal itself. But one thing was certain: humanity's return was no longer a question of if, it was a question of when. As the galaxy's leaders argued and planned, one thing became clear: the signal was only the beginning. Whatever had been hidden on Earth, whatever secrets it had been keeping, were about to be revealed. The fleet wasn't just an ancient relic, it was a force. And as humanity's shadow grew larger, the galaxy found itself on the edge of something far greater than anyone had expected. In the heart of the galaxy, the first signs of the fleet's movement began to emerge. Some called it a mirage. Others whispered that it was a test. But the truth was more terrifying. Humanity had returned, not with a plea for help, but with an assertion of their power. The myth had been shattered, and the galaxy was about to learn that it had underestimated Earth's strength. And so, with the fleet's awakening, a new chapter of galactic history began. The question remained: what would humanity do when it arrived? Would they conquer, negotiate, or simply observe? The galaxy could only wait and hope that whatever came next would not bring them all to the brink of destruction. The first sign of humanity's fleet appeared in the galaxy's outer rim, a place where few ships ever traveled. It was an area that no one thought worth exploring, filled with dead stars and empty planets. However, the sheer magnitude of the ships that emerged from the shadows sent shockwaves across the galaxy. At first, it was just one ship, a massive dark silhouette against the starry backdrop. The galaxy's sensors couldn't make sense of it. Was it a mirage, a malfunction, or something far more real and terrifying? But then another ship appeared, and another. They came into view like a storm gathering strength. The ships were enormous, old in design, but the technology, it was beyond anything the galaxy had ever encountered. Word spread like wildfire. Everyone, from the most powerful galactic empires to the smallest star systems, had heard the rumors and seen the evidence. The fleet was real, and it was coming. In every corner of the galaxy, officials scrambled to prepare. Some decided to send ships to intercept the incoming fleet, hoping to stop them before they entered inhabited space. Others sought to establish contact, hoping to negotiate. But no one knew who these humans were anymore, or what their intentions might be. Back on Earth, the leaders knew the time had come. They had been waiting, preparing in secret for centuries. The world's leaders had always known that their fleet, one of the most powerful to ever exist, would one day awaken, and now that day had arrived. But even Earth wasn't prepared for the sheer terror that their return would bring. The myth of humanity's power, once laughed at and dismissed, now became a source of dread across the galaxy. As the fleet moved closer, some factions of the galaxy chose to remain silent, unsure of how to respond. But the fear was palpable. Ships moved to intercept, but they were always too far away, too slow. It wasn't just that the human ships were faster or stronger. There was a sense of something ancient in their movement, an energy that seemed to command the very stars themselves. And then it happened. A single ship from the human fleet passed through a heavily guarded checkpoint, crossing into galactic space without warning. No communication, no threats. It just moved forward. The ship's design was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Ancient but sleek, with glowing blue lines running across its surface like veins. It dwarfed any known vessel, and as it glided silently through the void, The very air seemed to vibrate with power. Ships attempted to surround it, to scan it, but their attempts were futile. The human ship didn't respond to any of the signals sent. It simply continued its journey, leaving only the cold silence in its wake. On the bridge of one of the galaxy's largest warships, the tension was unbearable. The captain, an experienced military leader, knew that the galaxy couldn't ignore this threat. His fleet, like many others, had been prepared for war, against invaders, enemies, anything. But nothing had prepared them for this. He had seen the reports. Earth's fleet wasn't just one or two ships. It was a collection of thousands. The first ship had been a signal, a warning. The rest would follow. And soon, the galaxy would face something it hadn't seen in millennia. The captain ordered his fleet to engage, to intercept the human ship before it could do any damage. But as the orders were given, a strange thing happened. The ship, without any visible weaponry or defense, began to emit a powerful energy pulse. It wasn't a weapon. No, it was something else, something beyond their understanding. The energy pulse washed over the fleet, sending their sensors into chaos, scrambling their communications, and temporarily disabling their weapons. For a brief moment, the human ship became an unstoppable force, moving through the galaxy like a phantom, untouched by any attempt to stop it. The captain's hand hovered over the command button, unsure of what to do next. Every ship in his fleet was now inoperable. And this was just the first of many. If humanity could do this with one ship, what would the rest of the fleet be capable of? As he looked out into the vast emptiness of space, his heart sank. This was no ordinary fleet. Earth had returned with a vengeance, and no one was prepared for what would come next. Across the galaxy, messages began to flood in from every major military and political faction. They had all seen the same thing. Humanity's fleet had breached their space without warning, without communication, and now it was moving toward the heart of the galaxy. The myth had been shattered. Earth was not just a forgotten world, a lost race of humans. No, Earth was a power unlike any other, and it was marching forward with a purpose. The galaxy had underestimated humanity for far too long, and now the cost of that mistake was about to be revealed. As the fleet moved deeper into galactic space, the question wasn't whether they would engage, it was what would happen when they did. Would they invade? Would they demand answers? Or would they destroy everything in their path? One thing was certain: humanity's return was not a simple matter. It was a reckoning. And the galaxy was about to learn the true price of ignoring Earth. The galaxy was on edge. Across every major star system, news spread of the human fleet's arrival. Planetary governments and military councils were in disarray, scrambling to make sense of this terrifying new force. For centuries, they had dismissed Earth and its people, assuming they were just a faint memory, a lost world from the past. But now, the truth was undeniable. Humanity was not only real, they were powerful beyond measure. As the human fleet continued its journey through the galaxy, its sheer size and strength became more evident. Every ship that emerged from the depths of space added to the growing sense of dread. The fleet wasn't just a handful of ships. It was an armada, a force of unimaginable power that seemed to stretch endlessly across the stars. In the heart of the galaxy, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session. Leaders from across the known universe gathered in a vast chamber, their faces grim with the knowledge that humanity's return could signal the end of their dominance. "What do we know about them?" asked the head of the Zarkan Empire, his voice low with concern. He was a tall, imposing figure, his people known for their vast military might. Yet in this moment, even he seemed unsure. "They breached every defensive system without a single shot being fired," replied the head of the Tarxian Confederation, a woman with a sharp, calculating gaze. "We don't know what their weapons are, but we do know they can disable entire fleets with a single pulse." The room fell into silence, the weight of her words sinking in. The council had faced many threats over the years: hostile races, rebellious systems, even galactic superstorms, but none had struck fear into their hearts like the human fleet. "The question is, what do they want?" said a voice from the back of the room. It was the ambassador from the Avalar Dominion, a race known for its diplomatic prowess. If they wanted war, they would have already declared it. Instead, they seemed to be waiting. The silence deepened. No one had an answer. But everyone knew that if humanity had returned to the galaxy, it wasn't just for exploration or trade. There was a purpose behind their arrival, something far more dangerous than anyone had anticipated. Back on Earth, the leaders of humanity's fleet were silent. Their mission was clear, but they had no desire to reveal it just yet. For centuries, they had planned and prepared. They had watched as the galaxy ignored Earth, believing it to be a distant, insignificant place. Now, Earth's fleet was a reminder that the galaxy's greatest mistake was underestimating humanity. At the command center of the fleet, Admiral Valerie Quinn stood before a holographic map of the galaxy. Her hands rested on the table, her face reflecting the deep resolve she felt. She knew that this moment was both a chance and a risk, one that could either secure humanity's place in the galaxy or lead to their destruction. "Admiral," a voice called out behind her. It was Lieutenant Garrett, her most trusted officer. "The first wave of messages has been received. The galactic empires are making moves. Some are mobilizing fleets. Others are sending envoys to negotiate." Valerie nodded, her expression hardening. "Let them prepare. Let them fear. We've waited long enough." She turned back to the hologram, watching as the vast fleet of humanity slowly advanced toward the center of galactic space. It was not an act of aggression, not yet, but there was no mistaking the intent behind the movement. The fleet was not here to ask for permission. It wasn't here to beg for trade or alliances. Humanity had been forgotten for too long, its name spoken only in legends. But now, it was time for the galaxy to remember the truth. Earth wasn't just a lost world. It was the birthplace of a power unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. As Valerie looked out at the ships below her, she knew that their true power had yet to be revealed. The galaxy would soon understand why Earth's seat had been left empty all those years. It wasn't because humanity was weak. It was because the galaxy had no idea what humanity was capable of. One by one, the ships of Earth's fleet continued to move forward, their engines glowing brighter with each passing moment. They weren't just moving through space, they were sending a message. The silence that had once surrounded Earth was breaking, and the galaxy was about to hear its first true words in millennia. The galaxy watched in fear, wondering if they were about to witness humanity's wrath, or if something more profound was at play. What was Earth's ultimate purpose? What had they come to do? And what would the consequences be for a galaxy that had long since forgotten the true might of humanity? In the heart of the galaxy, leaders watched from their command centers, awaiting the next move, their hearts heavy with the weight of history. The fleets were assembling. The diplomats were making their way to the negotiating tables. But the one thing no one could escape was the knowledge that Earth was back. And this time, it wasn't going anywhere. As the ships advanced, the words of Earth's final message echoed across the stars. "You made a terrible mistake." The tension in the galaxy had reached its peak. The once proud empires, now trembling under the weight of the human fleet's advance, scrambled to prepare for the worst. Diplomatic envoys rushed to deliver messages of peace, offering everything they had to avoid conflict. But the leaders of Earth remained silent, allowing the pressure to build with each passing moment. Back aboard Earth's flagship, the U.S. Horizon, Admiral Valerie Quinn stared out into the cold abyss of space. The stars were peaceful, distant, indifferent. Yet she knew that beneath that calm, a storm was coming. The decision to make the first move had not been easy. There had been countless debates within the command staff, but Valerie had known from the start that humanity's return had to be more than just a statement. It had to be a lesson, one the galaxy would never forget. Her mind wandered back to Earth's history, the wars, the survival, the rise of humanity from the ashes of destruction. Humanity had never been a species to sit quietly and wait for change. It had always fought, always strived to overcome whatever came its way. And now, that spirit was about to be felt across the stars. "Admiral, the fleet is in position." Lieutenant Garrett's voice broke through her thoughts. "We're ready for your command." Valerie took a deep breath, her hand hovering over the communication console. The final decision was hers. The fleet wasn't here to negotiate. They weren't here for diplomacy. Earth had been ignored for too long, and now it was time for the galaxy to understand why it should never have underestimated humanity. She looked at the holographic map of the galaxy once more, her finger tracing the routes of the fleet's movement. The target was clear, the heart of the galaxy, where the largest and most powerful empire, the Xarthian Dominion, held court. It was their arrogance, their dismissal of humanity, that had set this chain of events in motion. Now, they would learn the consequences of underestimating Earth. "Launch the first strike," Valerie commanded. Her voice was calm, but every word carried the weight of 1,000 years of human history. As soon as her order was given, the fleet's weapons systems roared to life. On the horizon, every crew member braced themselves for the shockwave that would follow. But it was not a typical assault. Earth's weaponry was unlike anything the galaxy had ever encountered. Silent, invisible, and devastating. The first shot came from one of the massive supercarriers, the Valiant. It was not a traditional blast of energy or a missile. Instead, it was a wave of electromagnetic pulses that surged out in a massive sphere, disabling every ship in its path. The Xarthian fleet, positioned in the middle of a vast nebula, was completely unaware of the impending attack. Their sensors were blinded before they could even react, and their ships shut down one by one. The galaxy watched in stunned silence. The human fleet hadn't fired a single shot, and yet the power they unleashed was far beyond what anyone had imagined. The Xarthian ships, once symbols of might and pride, were now nothing more than lifeless husks drifting through space. The sudden and overwhelming strike sent shockwaves through the heart of the galaxy. In the Xarthian capital, the ruling council was thrown into chaos. What just happened? The Emperor demanded, his voice shaky. What kind of weapon could do this? His advisors, once so confident in their dominance, were now speechless. Their most advanced technology had failed them, and they had no idea how or why. But one thing was certain. The arrival of Earth's fleet was not just a warning. It was a declaration. Humanity had returned, and their power was not to be ignored. On the horizon, Admiral Quinn stood motionless, her eyes scanning the tactical data. The strike had been successful, but there was no sense of victory in her heart. This was not about revenge. It wasn't about proving humanity's superiority. It was about survival, about showing the galaxy that humanity would never be relegated to the status of myth again. "Lieutenant, send a message to the Xarthian fleet," Valerie ordered. "Tell them they've been given a chance. This will not happen again. We're not here to destroy. We're here to ensure that no one forgets us." The message was simple but powerful, echoing across the stars. It carried the weight of the warning humanity had been sending since the fleet's arrival. "You made a terrible mistake," the message read, "and this is only the beginning." But as the message reached the Xarthians, another question lingered in the minds of every observer. What would humanity do next? Would they take their revenge further? Or had this first strike been enough to send the message across the galaxy? The uncertainty was palpable. Fear spread through the galaxy like wildfire, as empires and fleets prepared for whatever was to come. The universe was now a place where humanity had a presence, and no one knew how far Earth's wrath might go. Admiral Valerie Quinn watched as the Xarthian fleet scrambled to respond. She knew they would regroup and retaliate, but she also knew that they would never be the same again. The human fleet had shown them a fraction of its power, and the galaxy would never forget the cost of underestimating Earth. The first strike had been sent, but the war was far from over. The news of Earth's power spread faster than anyone could have anticipated. Across the galaxy, countless species and empires, once confident in their dominance, watched in fear as Earth's fleet began to advance. The galaxy had believed humans were nothing more than a myth, an old story told by ancient races about a world that had vanished. Now those stories were coming to life, and the weight of their truth sent tremors through every corner of the galaxy. The Xarthian Dominion, still reeling from the first devastating strike, was the first to respond. But the galaxy was watching them, waiting for their next move. The mighty Xarthian fleet had been rendered powerless, their flagship destroyed, and the remnants of their ships floating lifelessly in space. It was a humiliation they could not ignore. The humans. They weren't just a myth, whispered Emperor Xarthar, his voice barely audible. He stood before a holographic map, his fingers trembling as they hovered over the symbols representing Earth's fleet. His once impenetrable empire was now a shadow of its former self, and the galaxy's eyes were upon them. Prepare the counterattack. All forces must be mobilized. We will not let this stand. But as the Xarthians scrambled to regroup, the galaxy's other powers were forced to make a choice: stand with the Xarthians or turn their attention to the true threat, the humans. There were whispers across the stars of alliances forming, of other empires preparing for war. But some questioned whether they could even face Earth's fleet at all. It wasn't just the firepower that terrified them. It was the unrelenting, cold determination that humanity had shown. Humanity had always been a species that overcame the impossible, and now they had returned to the stars. The galaxy had underestimated them, and the cost of that mistake was becoming clear. Admiral Quinn stood on the command deck of the Horizon, watching as the tactical displays flashed across the screen. Earth's fleet had already secured several key systems, and reports were pouring in from every corner of the galaxy. The first strike had sent a message, but the next phase of the operation was more crucial than ever. The message must be delivered loud and clear. Admiral, we've received an intercepted message from the Xarthian command, Lieutenant Garrett said, his voice sharp. They're preparing a full-scale offensive. They've already gathered their remaining fleet and are heading toward our territory. They're calling for reinforcements from their allies. Quinn nodded, her face steely. The Xarthians were desperate, but this wasn't just about them anymore. Other factions would be watching. If humanity faltered, if Earth's fleet allowed any sign of weakness, the galaxy would pounce. She would not let that happen. We won't wait for them to come to us. We go to them. Admiral Quinn said, her voice resolute. Prepare for the next phase. All ships on alert, and begin preparing our next wave of strikes. The galaxy needs to understand that Earth has no fear. We will not retreat. We will not negotiate. Across the fleet, the crew prepared for the coming battle. The massive ships, once thought to be relics of a forgotten war, now stood at the forefront of a new era. Their weapon systems were powered up, their advanced technologies humming with readiness. The human fleet was unlike any other, and the galaxy was about to learn the true cost of their arrogance. As the human fleet advanced into enemy territory, Earth's presence became undeniable. The stars that had once felt so distant, so safe, now felt cold and foreboding. The alliance of Xarthian and other galactic empires began to gather in anticipation, hoping to stop humanity's advance before it was too late. But there was a growing realization among the stars. Humanity wasn't just fighting for survival. They were fighting for their place in the galaxy. They were fighting to ensure that they would never be forgotten again. Admiral Quinn watched the unfolding chaos from the bridge of the Horizon. The once impregnable Xarthian fleets were scattered, their defenses crumbling. The power of Earth's technology, born from centuries of war and survival, was now fully unleashed. Admiral, the fleet has encountered resistance, Lieutenant Garrett reported, his voice tight. The Xarthian forces have rallied with some of their allies. They're not going down without a fight. Valerie's eyes flickered with a sharp determination. We didn't come this far to be stopped now. Tell the fleet to prepare for the final assault. We're not just showing them our power. We're showing them what it means to underestimate humanity. The final assault was not about sheer force alone. Earth's fleet had far more advanced technology than the galaxy had ever seen. But it wasn't just the ships that made humanity a force to be reckoned with. It was the people, the determination, the resilience, and the spirit of survival that had driven humans to fight against overwhelming odds for millennia. As the fleets clashed in the vast void of space, the galaxy held its breath. The humans had given their message, and the question now was whether the galaxy was ready to hear it. In the chaos of battle, the Xarthian ships began to fall, one by one. The remaining empires, realizing that their former allies were failing, began to hesitate. They had never faced an enemy like this. It wasn't just their weapons that scared them. It was their resolve. The humans had shown that they would stop at nothing to reclaim their place in the stars. For the galaxy, this was not just a war. This was the beginning of a new era, an era where Earth would no longer be a myth. It would be a force to be reckoned with, and nothing would ever be the same again. The message was clear. You made a terrible mistake. Humanity is here to stay. The final battle had been fierce. The remnants of the Xarthian fleet drifted helplessly in the void, broken and shattered. Their once proud empire was in ruins. The rest of the galaxy watched in stunned silence, the scale of humanity's power and determination slowly sinking in. Admiral Quinn stood at the command center of the horizon, her gaze focused on the tactical displays. The fleet had won, but at a cost. The battle had been brutal, and the scars of war were visible on every ship. Still, humanity had delivered its message to the stars. As Earth's forces regrouped, the fleet received reports from all over the galaxy. The Xarthian Empire was not the only one feeling the weight of Earth's reemergence. Alliances were beginning to fracture. Some empires were willing to align with Earth, while others feared that humanity's newfound power would be a threat to their own positions. The balance of power in the galaxy had shifted, and it was unclear whether the old order would ever return. One thing, however, was certain. Humanity was no longer a myth. "We've done it," Lieutenant Garrett said, his voice filled with awe. "The galaxy knows now. They know that Earth is back, and we're not going anywhere." Quinn nodded but remained silent. She knew this was just the beginning. The war was won, but there would be consequences, both for humanity and the galaxy at large. The galaxy had thought humanity was gone, a story told only in whispers. Now they knew better. Earth had a seat at the table once more, and the cost of ignoring that fact had been high. "Admiral, the Xarthian leaders are requesting a ceasefire. They want to negotiate terms of surrender," reported Captain Laura, her voice hesitant. Quinn didn't hesitate. "Tell them to send their representatives. It's time we settled the score once and for all."